everybody, to the first episode in a while of the Wordy and Nerdy podcast. Right here.
John.
Yep, your Wordy and Nerdy commentaryist. I just made that word up. But anyway, we are here we decided we would start the year off by talking about the newest installation of Squid Game. Now, I would say that Squid Game, so we watched the first season of Squid Game when it came out a couple years ago, and we remember it being sort of an underground smash. Like, it was like word of mouth mostly that I heard about it. Like, it was like, oh, people were like, oh, did you hear about Squid Game? And then, it kind of spread from there. It wasn't really widely advertised or anything. The second season did not have that issue. If anything, it overcorrected because the second season was heavily advertised. You couldn't sneeze without some kind of promotional tie-in to Squid Game 2. It was everywhere. I saw a Duolingo ad for Squid Game 2, like high-budget stuff. I saw, I think there was like a Domino's one. Which ones did you see?
Mainly the Domino's one and the Duolingo one, and then there was another one for a laundromat one for some reason.
Yeah, it was everywhere. I mean, like, especially around Christmas time, that Netflix basketball game with the Beyonce halftime show and everything, you could not escape hearing about Squid Game. They even advertised it on the Logan Paul Mike Tyson boxing match.
Yeah, remember? They did.
Yeah.
Where one of the commentators thought it was a horror movie or something.
Yeah, she was like, oh, it was so scary. I'm like, it wasn't really a horror. It was a thriller, but not a horror. I don't even think she watched it, frankly. But yeah, so all that to say that it was heavily advertised. And frankly, I think we were a little concerned because we had heard that the writer had only planned on really one season, which is common in K-dramas. I do watch a few K-dramas. A lot of K-dramas are kind of meant to only take up like one season or whatever, just like they have a story they want to tell. It's not necessarily like American television where there's like an expectation of a whole bunch of seasons. There are some that have multiple seasons. Like, I'm pretty sure there's one I like, Woo Young-woo, the lawyer, the autistic lawyer. I think that one had 2 seasons. So the writer's name is Swang Dong-hyuk. Basically had said that he, had only really planned on one season for the show. I think that he told a very comprehensive story in the first season, and I really don't think that we necessarily needed a second season. But Netflix said, hey, that made us $1 billion. Most of which did not go to Dong-hyuk, just for the record. But they were like, hey, make another one, or we'll kill your family. I don't like. This is how I assume that Netflix works with most of its writers.
So what was your overall thoughts of season 1?
Overall, I really liked season 1. I thought season 1 was an interesting commentary on a lot of things. Capitalism being the main one, obviously, but like, just the way that it reflected, like, gambling mentality and, like, financial crisis and how people can be pushed to do things they wouldn't ordinarily do because of extreme financial issues and stress. It was very interesting just culturally to see how, like, South Korea has a lot of the same issues that the United States does in terms of, like, capitalist society and gambling problems and all of that kind of stuff. Felt like it transcended cultures in terms of it was definitely relatable to an American audience despite not being an American show. I thought the acting was really good. Lee Jung-jae is the main character. I thought that his performance was good, although to be honest, I actually think it improved in the second season. But also his character just improved in the second season, so I don't know if that's so much the acting. So, what did you think of the first season?
I honestly thought it was really good because we watched it probably a month after all the hype and everything. I still think my favorite episode was episode 2 when they pretty much said, oh, we're done with the games, and we pretty much saw all the characters' background and we saw the reason why they went in the Squid Games in the first place, and we saw how desperate they were. And they even went back, and I can't remember what was the percentage they said in episode 3 when they all returned, but like 99% or 95% came back anyway. Yeah. It was like a ridiculous amount.
That was definitely compelling. And just the characters I thought were really interesting.
Yeah.
Like a lot of, we got to know not just Gi-hun, the main character, but also a bunch of other characters, why they were there, what their stories were, the alliances that he made, and the friends that he made. And then, of course, one by one, all of those friends died because that was the nature of the game. And then, of course, there was a big twist at the end of the first season. It was genuinely surprising in a way that I enjoyed. Compared to some twists that happened in the second season, which we'll get into, I definitely thought it was more, like, it really felt more like a twist. Like, I was genuinely like, oh, wow, okay. But it was also one of those things where it's like, if you look back and see the evidence, you can be like, oh, okay, yeah, that kind of makes sense now looking back on it. Which to me is the best kind of twist. The twist that if you go back and look at, like, the evidence for it, you can be like, oh, okay, yeah, I see how we got there. even if you didn't see the twist coming.
I think another thing that I want to compliment from season 1 is that every episode we had a game or a motivation or compelling evidence for a brand new contestant that we're just learning about.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it was pretty consistent in terms of like just about every episode had a game.
Yeah, and the pacing just felt very consistent overall, and we saw like one of his best friends he knew from childhood become from his friend to pretty much this asshole character at the end, where he betrayed one of his coworkers, his friends, in the marble game.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, I thought that like all of the characters were pretty compelling, not just to hear their stories, but also like the background, the other characters that made them like we learned about Gihan's mother, and she was dying, and the whole one of the reasons that he was in the games in the first place was to support his mother, who was ill and had no money left because he had a gambling addiction. He also had a wife that he was divorced from and a daughter that he was sort of estranged from. Can you not get out of here?
Sorry, cats.
And so, yeah, we got to see some of the family dramas and stuff like that. And I think that it was set up. And then at the end of it, Gihan had won the game. And
his mother still died.
Yeah, his mother still died. And also he basically left, had the opportunity to just leave everything behind and just, go with the money. And then he decided that he wanted to come back, or he wanted to do something about the games to like put it into them, or do something, or get revenge or something like that. And that's kind of how it left off in season 1, which some people would see as sort of a cliffhanger, but like it also didn't feel like, oh, if the show doesn't continue from here, we'll be missing something, because it was still a complete ending. I mean, like some movies end like that, where it's like, yeah, theoretically it could keep going, but it doesn't have to. And so like if we had only gotten one season, I think that would have been fine. But they, Netflix wanted a second season, so that's what we got. And yeah, let's talk about the second season.
All right. So the second season, it immediately starts out with him taking his red hair off immediately.
Never understood the red hair thing. I thought it looked bad from the beginning. I don't know why you ever had that. A lot of K-pop stars will dye their hair funny colors, but like he wasn't a K-pop star, so I have no idea why he did that.
And pretty much the first episode was him trying to find the salesman to get some information more about the games, where the island's at, and he basically rented out or bought this hotel and bought a bunch of people to stand in subways for like 2 years just looking for this guy. And both of us felt like that was a big waste of money and time compared to everything he could have done with it. Because we also follow the storyline of the cop.
Oh yeah, because the cop, and in the first season, there was one cop who believed Gihan when he went to the police, and he was looking for his brother, and he suspected that his brother might be a contestant in the games, so he ended up like trying to track down the island to figure out where the games were, and what he came to discover was that his brother was involved in the games, but not as a contestant, but as the front man, the one who was basically running them. Not the old guy who had like founded them, but the one who was actually like actively running the games in a black mask or whatever. And he found out his brother was running them, and then his brother get him to just come with him, and when he wouldn't do that, he shot him and he fell off a cliff. And so it was, but we never saw a body, so I was like, okay, well, he's not dead, because no one knew. If it's the general rule, no body, no crime. If there's no body, then that character could very well still be alive. And indeed, he shows back up here in the second season, injured but alive, and he's made friends with this fisherman guy who has been helping him hunt for the island.
And I thought that was a way more effective way to find evidence, because like, I know they said hundreds of islands, but hundreds of islands compared to looking for this one person at this one time in this specific location. He's been searching for 2 years and not even getting closer with so many men and everything. And the cop only had himself and the captain, basically. Yeah. And I feel like if he teamed up with Ginhan, it could have been a way more effective way to find the location than just doing their plan, which we'll go into for season 2.
Yeah, I mean, it definitely felt like he was getting more done even with just 2 people than Gihan had managed to do in 2 years with a whole, like, he literally has, like, he made like a business out of it, I guess, and it's just like he employed like all of these like gang members or something to to hunch all of the subways for the salesman guy, that the one who had played that game with, where he like slaps him and throws the paper down or whatever. Eventually, after like 2 years of hunting and searching, the two of his guys, they do find him, and against Gi-hun's orders, they try to apprehend him, and they both get taken out by this guy who takes them to this like location and plays a game with them, of course, rock, paper, scissors. Well, it ends with one of them dying and the other one being like tied up somewhere, which Gi-hun eventually finds that guy, and through, various shenanigans, they end up connecting with the police officer again. They ended up deciding to work together on a plan to infiltrate the games and to figure out what's going on. So Gi-hun has a face-off with the salesman, who tells him a card in his pocket that has a meeting location for the guy, and they play a game of Russian roulette, which Gi-hun ends up winning, and he takes the card off the dude's body, and which, by the way, that guy, that actor, I think his name's Gong Yu, and I thought he did a really good job of communicating just like an absolutely nutso ba-boom boom. Like, that man was crazy. Gong Ji Chul, I think is his full name. Yeah, he really played a maniac really well. Like, he was freaking me the fuck out. Then he ended up dying from the Russian roulette game, which that kind of plays into what I say about how I think that Gi-hun's character was a lot more compelling this season, because you can tell he was hardened, he had been through some shit, and he just was not afraid. Like, he didn't value his own life really anymore, in terms of, he's like, yeah, I won, but like, at what cost? I lost all of these people, and I had to do all of these horrible things, and I'm haunted by that. And so he's basically just like, I'm either going to put an end to this or die trying. Like, he's very much past the point of kind of caring about his own well-being. There's this point at which the salesman is challenging him, like, you have the gun, because they were taking turns shooting at each other with one bullet in the chamber, and he's like, you have the option to just shoot me and steal it, but then you would have to admit that you're just as lowly as everybody else. You just happen to get lucky and win, and you're no better than anybody else. Gi-hun's basically like, you just the dog. You're like the pet of these people who are in charge of you. You just do whatever they command you to do. You have no power on your own. They both kind of challenge each other's morals and perspectives, but they end up playing the game fair, and Gi-hun just wins fair and square. That seems to be sort of the overarching theme of the second season. There seems to be some themes of like philosophical position, where it's like, are you any better than these people? Is what they're doing truly evil, or is it just these people who have ruined their own lives and are making their own choices? That's sort of the philosophical question that's posed throughout the season, I would say.
I overall enjoyed season 2. Like, I came in very low expectations and everything. I just don't think it was effective as season 1. And I think the reason why is because some characters' decisions don't really make any real sense. Like, for example, like the main plan, once he teams up with all these people, he hires these military group people, and his main plan is to put a GPS in his tooth to pretty much lead them to the location of where the game is at. Mm-hmm. And I don't really understand why you would do that in the first place. You have all the advantage of pretty much being outside the game, and they don't control every aspect. Mm-hmm. But as soon as you're knocked out, they control everything. Yeah. They can take anything off of you. The next episode we find out, they immediately took the GPS out of his teeth. And he's pretty much playing the entire game again.
Yeah, I mean, it was like the going into the games was, I guess, their plan B, because the plan A was just to kidnap the frontman, but of course the frontman didn't show up in person, so the plan B, go into the games again. That didn't work because they decided to check him for a tracker, which it seems sort of obvious that they would do. So the whole plan just felt a little bit like half-baked. Because on some level, I think you're supposed to believe that Gi-hun is smarter this season, because he's not making, like, he's more experienced, or he's seen more stuff. And in some ways he definitely is, but in other ways it's just like, come on, man. Like, well, why did you think that would work? So, yeah, it is interesting to kind of see how his plan falls apart pretty quickly and pretty predictably, I would say.
Yeah, it was kind of obvious. Like, if I was running this game and some winner said, oh, put me back into the game, why the world would he want to be put back in the game? Might as well check him for trackers or whatever. Yeah. Oh, wow, he has a tracker in his tooth. Okay. Yeah,
exactly. Like, it just seemed like, obviously they were going to guess that. But then the big twist was in, I think, the second or maybe third episode. They have the first vote. So, first of all, they changed the rules a little bit for the game. The people say the new rules are, after every game, you have the chance to vote to leave. And if the majority vote to leave, then you will all leave with a portion of the money. Like the money, whatever money has been earned up to that point will be split among the people that are left in the game. That makes it a little bit different than the first season where they only voted once, and then and also it was kind of winner takes all. This time there's an opportunity for them to go home with a little bit less money, so they could either keep playing and get more money but also risk dying, or quit while they're ahead and walk away with the money that they have. So it makes it more of a gambling aspect. And so they do that, and in the first time they vote, it is a tie, and then there's one person to break the tie, and it's player 001, and so they come to make their vote, and they end up voting to continue the games, and when the person turns around, it's the front man, which I didn't really understand why they didn't keep that a secret, or they reminded us of what the front man looked like in this season. I think it would have made more sense not to do that, so that it would be like a genuine surprise, like, who is this guy? But since you already kind of know that it's the front man in disguise, it's kind of like, well, what's the point? You know what I'm saying?
I think the main problem is because they talk about the cop being a brother to the front man, and they don't explore that at all this season.
Yeah.
Nothing. Like, the tiniest little information we got was that the front man had a wife, and she was dying from a disease, and this disease was uncurable, and they had no money to provide him or anything, and it sounds like he entered the game and he won, basically, and instead of doing what Ginhan's doing and trying to take down the company, he joined the company. He basically became one of the top tier.
Did he win?
Yeah, he won. He won a 28 game.
So, apparently, so he was a previous winner. Yeah, I didn't really get all that, because also there was some, especially at the beginning of the season, there seemed to be some indication that we were getting some peek behind the curtain in terms of the people who were, people in pink suits, basically. The guards, the front man, the salesman, all of those people. Like, how did they get involved in the games? How did they get involved working for whatever this shadow company is that puts on the games? So we gotta get insight into that, and one of the insights we get is into the front man, who is the brother of the cop, and who apparently had won a previous game.
I think it just would be more interesting if, like, I don't know, the brother got into the game and the front man was also playing too, so we could actually explore their relationship a little bit more, because I don't get any dynamic from the brother and the cop characters, and I honestly don't care about that storyline. Like, I believe it's around episode 3 where they find the tracker. As soon as you see them find that the tracker wasn't on Ginhan anymore, you can completely skip every scene past them. That plot does not go anywhere.
Yeah, we keep getting back to the cop and the fisherman and all the people that are trying to search, all of the people outside who were helping Gihan, and they kind of don't get anywhere. And the biggest thing that happens with that is that toward the end, we find out that the fisherman might be a mole or something, because it appears that he's been leaking information or something, and he kills one of the guys. But we really don't know who he's leaking information to or why, because that just hasn't been explored yet.
I don't think he would be working for them, because why would he save the cop in the first place in season 1? Doesn't really make sense, and he's helping him find the island?
Well, unless he's intentionally not helping him. Like, if he knows where the island is and he's intentionally, directing him in other directions. Also, because he's the one who saved the guy, he might not have known who he was at the time, but if he's working with his brother, then maybe his brother told him to, keep track of him or something. Again, we don't know, because none of this has been explained, but, there's something going on.
And I think, another aspect that I didn't really enjoy in season 2 were, the contestants, really. I just felt like there were way too many, and most of them weren't that interesting, or most of them we didn't really get that much information about.
Yeah, there's a mother who's there with her son. That's kind of an interesting dynamic. There is a pregnant woman, and her baby daddy is also there. With also a lot of coincidences, I would say, because the mother and the son didn't know that each other was in the game until they both found each other. Same with the pregnant girl and the baby daddy. There is a trans girl. There's a whole trans plotline, which I'm not quite sure why they tackled it. Although, for what I understand, it was a pretty progressive plotline by Korean media standards. I just sort of wish they had cast an actual trans woman instead of a cis male, as far as I know, for the role. But yeah, so there's that plot line. You know, there are a few other characters, but I don't feel like it spent nearly as much time building characters and relationships like it did in the first season. And some people said this was more about like broad strokes motivations for the characters and why they do things. Because there's also an interesting character. We get to see one of the characters who plays one of the guards, her motivations. She's trying to get her daughter out of North Korea, and she ends up joining the games as a guard. And she is one of the things that is a recurring thing is like it was established in the first season that for the people that aren't quite dead yet, they keep them alive long enough to harvest their organs and sell them on the black market. And so they are still doing that in season 2, but this girl apparently, you know, opposes that. So she's just like, if she sees someone who's like half dead but not quite completely dead, she keeps finishing them off, which gets her in trouble with some of the other guards. And that becomes like a point of contention. I read an interview with the actress who was explaining kind of what her character's motivations were, and she was basically like, her thing is she justified herself joining the games as an opportunity to put people out of their suffering. She doesn't see prolonging their suffering so that their organs can be harvested as okay by that standard. So she finishes them off so that they won't be like harvested and stuff because she wants to end their suffering faster. Which, okay. I mean, at that point, it's like, I guess, but like, it's hard to be like, oh, you're taking a moral stance when you're like volunteering to shoot these people to death in the first place for losing at Duck Duck Goose or something. I thought that whole plot line was kind of interesting.
I didn't think that plot line went anywhere, to be honest. Like, well,
especially because they threatened her and then she just stopped, and so it was just like, okay, well, I don't really know why that happened in the first place.
Yeah. And we don't really explore like any information she gets at all from working with them. She just pretty much works with them. She gets threatened, and that's pretty much the end of her storyline.
Yeah.
The entire season.
And I don't know if it'll come back up in the second season, but like in the first season, that's pretty much all we got from her. So yeah, there were some interesting characters, but a lot of what, I don't know, I don't feel like a lot was done with them. I think one of the saddest deaths was probably the girl that had made friends with Hyun Bae, I think her name was. She ended up dying during the game where they were trying to like get into the rooms. That was sad, but I don't feel like any of that was as sad as like when Ali died in the first season.
No, it wasn't.
That one was much sadder to me.
I know like every game basically has the asshole contestant.
Oh yeah, that was Top. He's or TOP Thanos, who's apparently he was big in a K-pop group.
Yeah, I didn't really think Thanos was menacing or anything. He was just
I thought it was mostly annoying.
Like, I feel like the asshole in the first season, the gang leader, was way more interesting because he was actually threatening, like physically. And we saw his relationship with his pretty much girlfriend or and we saw them go through the games, and it ended up satisfying of her pretty much killing him. And we don't really get anything with Thanos. Like, the only thing Thanos really does is want to continue the game. He takes drugs. He takes drugs the entire season, basically.
He's willing to kill to improve his chances.
Which a lot of these characters are.
Yeah.
So it doesn't really make him that interesting. He's threatening this spineless character to continue the game. He also has one of these other co-workers that pretty much asking for drugs every game he goes in. And it just wasn't really compelling at all. Like, I'm glad that they have their own version of Logan Paul there.
Yeah, I mean, basically that was his whole character was just like annoying influencer guy, and it was just like it wore thin pretty quickly in my opinion.
Yeah.
I am glad that actor is getting work though, because apparently he got like kind of arbitrarily canceled for smoking weed which, like, who fucking cares? Like, apparently that's, like, a bigger deal in a lot of Korean celebrity circles than, like, sexual assault. And so they, like, almost drove him to suicide over it. It was crazy. Like, just because he smoked a little weed. I'm pretty sure he smoked it in a country where it was legal.
I do believe I heard more that he actually did work for free this season because of what you told me about. And, you know, the main character, Ginghon, I can't remember his actual name in real life, pretty much stood up for him and say, hey, I really think Thanos will bring something to season 2, so give him a chance. He's even willing to work for free on this. And I just didn't really think he sadly brought much.
I mean, I think that I do think he was one of the more fun characters in terms of, like, I don't think any characters were as good as, like, season 1 in terms of just, like, compelling. I don't think he was as compelling as the bully character in season 1. I did enjoy him. He was funny.
Yeah.
You know, it's just like a kind of silly one, you know, character. But when he died, it was just like, well, oh well.
I guess that's it.
Yeah.
And I think the most compelling character to me, like the new one, was the mom and the gambler son. Like, I thought that was the most effective new characters because I thought we actually spent time with them. Yeah,
we kind of understood why they were there and what their what their motivations were and stuff, which I did think, because Park Young-sik and his mother, Gyum-ja, were with the mother and son, and they were fun characters, and I did feel like we got to know them. Like, I feel like them and Jo Yuri, who is the pregnant girl, and also Cho Hyun-ju, who the trans girl.
Yeah,
I thought that she was interesting, and so there were a few characters that I cared about, and I assume that they're just waiting to kill them for the third season. Where it'll actually have some emotional impact because we spend the most time with those characters.
Yeah.
But a lot of the other characters, like, well, you can take them or leave them.
And I just don't think it was that smart to split this season because first season was 9 episodes. This was only 7. And in total, we only got 3 games. Mm-hmm. And then in the first season, we got 6 games.
Yeah, there definitely weren't as many games, and some of the games took 2 whole episodes, which I thought was interesting. Like, they would set up the game in one episode, and then the game would go into the next episode, instead of it just being contained in one episode, which I thought was interesting. Because I do feel like, one of the things I do like about the first season is that, we had a new game every episode, so we had sort of a new focus every episode, instead of just the same thing.
Like, the other big plot thread that we're basically following is that the front man joined the game, and we're kind of just waiting for him to betray Ginghon. That doesn't really happen till, like, the very end, and we still don't understand why he joined the games in the first place.
Yeah, exactly. It's like it was a little bit confusing, like, because again, it wasn't a twist because we knew that he was the front man, and therefore we knew that he was ultimately going to betray Gihan, even though Gihan basically just believed him completely, which is a little odd to me. And so when he betrayed him, it wasn't like, oh snap, I can't believe it, it's the so and so, because we already knew that. And so it was just kind of like, well, then why is this happening?
And it wasn't even like he joined the games to manipulate Ginhan in any way, because Ginhan went with his plan anyway.
Yeah, I mean, I think he was theoretically, I think he was sort of trying to fuck with Gihan's mind, but Gihan did end up doing what he was going to do anyway, so I don't think it mattered that much.
Yeah.
His plan, his fucking half-baked plan to take 12 people with guns and against a whole army, which shockingly didn't work.
I just don't understand what his plan was. It was just, hey, let the contestants on the other team kill us, and some magical way the people with guns will be next to us, and we can somehow control the guns and raise a whole army, a rebellion against them.
Yeah, one of the interesting things I thought was when somebody said when Gihan is discussing the plan with 001, who's the front man in disguise, he says something like, well, the front man points out, he's like, that people are going to die if we go with your plan of, like, not intervening when because basically it's like half of the group, there's tensions because half the group wants to stay and half the group wants to go. And so the people who want to stay want to kill off the people who want to go so that they will win the vote. And so they know that there's going to be, like, a violent attack in the barracks that night. And so Gi-hun is basically like, okay, we'll let them attack, and then while in the chaos, we'll wait till the guards come in to break it up, and then we'll jump the guards and steal their guns. Player 001 says, like, oh, so you're saying that, like, it's okay to let people die for the greater good. Like, I think that was supposed to be pulling out one of those threads of, like, the morality of the games and stuff like that. Like, maybe he's trying to get Gi-hun to, like, admit that, like, you are willing to do bad things for a greater purpose. Just like I am, but like, again, I didn't feel like that really went anywhere because, like, yes, it did happen, and yes, they went through the plan and it didn't work out at the end, but like, I don't know, I don't feel like that thread was really connected.
Yeah, it wasn't really connected, and like, the frontman and Ginhan's dynamic wasn't really that interesting to me. I don't think, at least, is because Ginhan, for some reason, even though he got portrayed in like the first season where with the old man, he automatically believed this brand new stranger that voted against continuing the games automatically just because he told him, I don't know, probably even a bullshit story about his wife and everything. He could have told him anything, and Ginhan would believe him. And I just find it really interesting that Ginhan went through this whole season of watching all these nice people turn into more horrible people as the games went on. And he didn't learn that lesson.
He didn't seem to learn from the guy, I don't know. It felt like they were asking a lot of questions, but the answers weren't very clear. I would also say it feels like the writer had a story that he wanted to tell, but also had to work within the parameters of Netflix being Netflix and being like, oh, let's split it into 2 seasons and let's do this and that. And so I don't know how much creative freedom he was given.
Like, I believe even for season 1 that he originally wanted to be like a movie or something like this. And he had to stretch it out to a series, so that's why the whole cop plot line got thrown in and everything. And that was probably like the weakest part of season 1 because that didn't really go anywhere.
Yeah.
And that's the same case for season 2. Again, this cop plot line went nowhere again. And I just don't think the frontman is that much of an interesting character because we still haven't really explored his background
or his motivations.
Yeah, at all. Like, even if it's true that he won the games and he's now working for this company and everything, why is that the case? Why did he suddenly say, instead of getting on like hating the whole thing, why did he suddenly love it?
And also, like, so what?
Yeah.
Where does that put us?
Yeah, where does that put us at all?
You got any more fun facts?
Like, the other fun fact that I want to bring up is that they...
Hey, what is this spelling?
Terrible spelling. I just wanted to bring up that they had a lot more contestants. That's why I bolded all the contestants compared to season 1 up there. And I just felt like they had way too many because they had this other girl that was pretty much friends with the shy guy. And that went nowhere. She immediately died. And you thought maybe her plot line was convincing the shy guy to actually stand up against that. But when they actually attack the other team, she just dies. And
she just dies. And like the shy guy like makes one attempt to help her, like by like lightly throwing something at the guy that was killing her. And then when that doesn't work, he just hides like a bitch. And I'm like, oh my god, dude.
Yeah.
Like, mind you, she's the only one who ever stood up for him. She's the only one who was ever nice to him. And, like, he threw her right under the bus.
Like, immediately. Like,
and then he, like, cries about it. I'm like, I don't feel bad for you because you're a bitch. Like
yes!
If maybe she'd still be alive if you weren't such a pathetic little bitch.
And, like, maybe in season 3 they'll make him interesting.
Maybe.
But I don't really care about his character.
No.
I actually dislike him a lot more now.
Yeah, it's just like, wow, you were like, I mean, the fact that he literally, like, she held her hand out to welcome him into her group, and he used it to, like, trick her into, like, beating her at rock, paper, scissors. Which was crazy.
Yes.
And then even, like, Thanos was like, man, that was ice cold how you did that. And I was like, what the fuck?
Dude, come on! Stand up! Jesus!
Like, she was, like, genuinely the only person who was nice to him, and he just went with the bullies instead. I don't know why.
And, like, the other aspect of, like, the pregnant girl, the husband is pretty much
that is not her husband. That is her baby daddy.
But baby daddy is like a crypto influencer, and a lot of the contestants in there are in there because of him.
Yeah.
And, like, that really doesn't go anywhere.
Other than the fact that Thanos has this ongoing, like, rivalry with him, and they end up, like, fighting each other to the death. And Thanos ends up dying because the other dude stabs him, which is kind of what starts the whole civil war between the prisoners. But yeah, other than that,
like what I mean by going nowhere is, like, their relationship of, like, the pregnant girl and the baby daddy. Like, he wants her to accept him again.
He wants her to get back with him so that he can have both of their prize monies or whatever. He claims he wants to help be a family again, but she's kind of like, I don't know if I trust you. I think that you... Because he also tricked her with the crypto stuff, and I think she's like, you just want to have access to my money as well, so that you can, gamble again. Like, I don't trust you to raise our child, which is, like, good for her, and I find her character interesting, but I just don't care what happens to him.
Yeah, he even said it himself, I believe, immediately after, like, put our investments together and everything.
Yeah.
Like, so he didn't even change from these games at all. He's still this spineless influencer that will kill to get money.
Uh-huh.
So I don't find him interesting as a character at all.
No.
So why would I root for him when he kills Thanos? Oh, cool. Another asshole kills another asshole.
Yeah,
Woo-hoo.
I mean, it's like when he killed Thanos, it was like, okay, well, Thanos is gone, I guess. But it's just like, I mean, it wasn't like, yay, good for him. It was just kind of like, well... Like, when they were fighting, I was like, either of them could die or both of them could die, and I really wouldn't care.
Yeah. And, like, they also had multiple assholes this season instead of one. Mm-hmm. They had this old man that pretty much... Oh, my God,
he was so annoying. Yeah. Player 100. I remember his name. It was Player 100. It was some asshole, like, business guy who was, like, hundreds of thousands of won in debt, and he was like, we gotta keep playing the games because I got some money that I owe or whatever. And he was such a, like, there was also a weird point where, like, when Gihan admits that he's played the games before, he, like, tries to warn them what's gonna happen with the red light, green light. And then they're like, you played the games before, are you like a plant or something? And he's like, no, I came back in here to, try to stop it or whatever. And they were like, oh, well, you know how to play the game, so we'll be fine. And so they're like, well, what was the next game? And he tells them, like, well, last time I played, the next game was the candy carving game. Now, I mean, all he has control over is what happened in the past. Like, he has no control over what they do in the game in the future. He's just like, that is what the game was when I was there. And he says, if the game is confirmed to be that again, then I will tell people how to win it. But, like, he clearly does not know for sure that it will be that game. So then the next day, it isn't that game. They change the games up. And they're like, this guy's a liar. And I'm like, he never lied. He's told you what he knew. He has no control over what they do afterward. Yeah. Like, I don't know. And then the old man was like the one that was leading the charge against him. Was like, he clearly didn't lie because he was telling the truth about red light, green light. And like, I don't know why they were like, oh, this guy's a liar. I'm like, no, he just doesn't have control over what the game makers do.
Oh, and they also had another asshole, the fortune teller lady.
The shaman.
The shaman, like, I hated her so much.
Again, she was annoying with no purpose. Like, she was just, like, there, and she kept saying these creepy, cryptic things, like karma's a bitch, I should have known better. She's just, like, saying this weird shit, and it's just like, okay.
Yeah, okay. Go
The
ahead.
best moment with her was when she kept freaking out about the game when they all had to do, like, when there was 5 of them tied together and they each had to do a game, and she kept screaming about the gods of heaven and earth or whatever, and she was like, they've abandoned me, and then the trans girl, like, punches her in the face and says, if you don't get your shit together, I will kill you before your gods do.
Yeah.
Like, and again, that was only cool because of Hyun Bae or whatever her name
Yes. Like, I don't think you need 3 or 4 assholes per season.
No.
You could have just focused on one like you did the first season.
Yeah, the one, we had the main asshole, and then we had the lady asshole, who was only kind of an asshole. She was mostly just annoying, but she was still way more entertaining than this lady was.
Yeah.
And she had a big moment at the end where she took out that other dude, and it was like, yeah, I was like, you know what, good for her. I support women's wrongs. And I just never felt like that with this other girl.
And, like, I don't feel like these assholes will have a compelling arc in season 3.
No.
Like, they're all alive, but I don't really care about them at all. Like, I wouldn't even care if the fortune teller kills, like, someone I dislike. It would be the same thing.
Yeah, really, okay, well.
Well, I guess that happened. An asshole killed another asshole. Okay?
Yeah. I do think that they're saving some of the deaths that we're more likely to care about for the second season. Because I feel like one of the only deaths that mattered, one of the only, like, meaningful deaths in season was the one girl that was a friend of Hyun Bae, and then the friend of, Gi-hun's friend, who died during the rebellion or whatever. And then the one girl that was nice to the nerdy guy that died was kind of sad. But, like, other than that, it was just like, alright, well.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Did you really like Ginghon's friend, gambler
Not
friend?
really, no.
Did you just like him because Ginghon's friends with him?
Exactly. I mean, his connection with Gi-hun was nice, but, like, by himself, no, I would not have cared about him as a character.
And I just felt like his friend in the first season was a lot more interesting.
Yeah, because again, you saw his family life. You saw his mother, his I think didn't he have a brother or something?
Yes.
Like he had like a whole story behind him that we got some context. It wasn't just like some dude who Gi-hun was old friends with, but like we don't really know much about him.
Yeah, we did see him briefly in season 1
Yeah.
gambling with him.
Yeah.
But that's about it. And I also find interesting, like, his friend in season 1 had this friend that pretty much looked up to him.
Yeah.
And we saw him portray him and become more of an asshole while it was going.
Yeah.
And, like, that doesn't really happen in season 2. Like, he's just pretty much Ginghon's friend.
I know.
The entire season.
And the way that and the betrayal that happens is, again, very predictable. We know it's going to happen, and so it's just kind of like when it does, it's just like, well, I mean, again, it doesn't have an emotional impact because it's like, well, we knew that Player 001 was a double agent, and so it's just kind of like when that is revealed officially, it's just kind of like, well, yeah, I mean, I knew that already.
This was successful for Netflix. I believe Netflix posted something that it was like one of the most watched streaming services.
Yeah, but Netflix always says that,
Yeah.
and Netflix never actually releases numbers, so we never know if they're pulling shit out of their ass.
That's very true.
Like, I mean, I can believe that it was, because again, they marketed the shit out of it. So I believe that it was popular, but also Netflix is always saying, like, oh yeah, we had the most popular show, just trust us, we're not going to give you any data to support that.
No, we just did it. Hey, just believe us. Make sure you come around for season 3.
I mean, it's just like, I mean, Netflix has been operating, I think, like, at a loss for years now. Like,
Yeah.
they lose so much more money than they make, it's crazy. So it's just like, well,
So, my question to you is that, do you feel like this Squid Game was more interesting continue as a franchise? That's basically what happened.
Yeah, that's the other thing we need to talk about, the fact that they're going to expand this as a franchise.
Yes.
Because we as a society learn absolutely nothing from the point of the first thing. Not only did we have the regular game show version that Netflix put on, and then of course that other one that Mr. Beast did, but then also Netflix has announced that they're going to be doing an American version. They're going to expand the cinematic universe of Squid Game. We're going to have an American version of Squid Game, and like theoretically we could have one, like, get ready for Squid Games Los Angeles, Squid Games London, Squid Games Paris, Squid Games Sydney, Australia. Like, it's just a worldwide franchise. Squid Games Criminal Intent, Squid Games Special Victims Unit, of all of these fucking franchised Squid Games in all of these different countries, which I'm like, wow, could we have missed the point harder? Like, what the fuck is this?
Yeah, like, they're still with Squid Game's Challenger Season 2, the real-life Squid Game. The director of the American Squid Game, he does have a good credit on him. Like, he made Gone Girl, he made Fight Club, he made Social Network 7. So he knows how to make stuff. But I just don't think it would be interesting enough to say, oh, it's Squid Game, but now it's in America.
Yeah, I mean,
so
I just think
what?
an American version of it is just gonna be so goofy. And, like, to what end? I mean, it's just like, I feel like it's gonna kind of become like The Walking Dead, where it's just like an oversaturated franchise that doesn't really have anything to say anymore.
Like, I just don't really think this series should continue.
No.
Like, it doesn't need to
I feel like it would have been a very impactful as one season or a movie
Yeah.
or something. Like, you know what? That movie was really good. We don't have to make everything a franchise or a cinematic universe. Like, I think there are some things where an artist has something to say, and then they say it, and that's it. Like, we don't need a sequel to Everything Everywhere All at Once. I think that was one of the best movies I've ever seen in my life. We do not need a sequel.
No.
We don't need a TV show. We don't need a spin-off. We don't need any of that shit, because that person had something to say, and they said it, and it's over. like,
I'm overall glad the creator got paid for this season.
yeah, I mean, he definitely deserved to get paid way more than he did the first time.
Because he got paid nothing at all.
Yeah.
Like, for
pennies compared to what they ended up making from it.
For context, he wanted to make Squid Games Season 1 for about 10 years. And he couldn't be able to do it because he had kept on taking out loans and everything. And Netflix approached him with this deal, which I'm sure it was a terrible deal for him, but he was compelled enough to do it because he believed in the storyline. And it just kind of felt for Season 2. I know he still said he put all of his effort, and he still talked about how he was super stressed about living up to Season 1. I just don't think he made the mark for us.
Yeah, and again, I don't even want to blame him for that, because I really do think that has more to do with Netflix's interference, and also just, like, again, like, it's hard to, like, force creativity. If you had something to say and you said it, and then Netflix is like, hey, say it again, but louder this time because we want money, it's like, how, there's only so much you can do.
And like, make sure your idea is good enough to split into 2 seasons.
Yeah, make sure that we can split into 2 seasons, make sure we can spin off the franchise, make sure that our shareholders and our demographics and our databases and our fucking focus groups like it. I mean, like, it just becomes this whole mess.
Yeah. And I'd rather him tell a story that he's really wants to tell, and he gets some money he deserves to tell it.
Yeah.
But it just feels like he wanted to make money that he's rightfully deserves of, and he made it. And that was the case.
Yeah, so it is, mixed bag. I mean, overall, I thought the acting was good still. I thought the cinematography was good. I did enjoy parts of season. Like, it was enjoyable enough to keep watching to want to see what happens. And I'm sure we'll watch season 3 because, might as well finish it. So yeah, I don't think it was as good as season 1, but I would still, probably give it overall, like, maybe a 6 or 7 out of 10.
I don't really like number score and stuff, but pretty much I thought it was really good, but it wasn't as good as season 1. And I just felt like we had to stretch out this season. He planned out into 2 seasons, and he had to add a bunch of plot lines that weren't really interesting, and it just pretty much dragged the season to us. And it wasn't really interesting with some of the games, as a matter of fact. Like, the merry-go-round was probably the most interesting game, I would say. I didn't really think the second game of them doing multiple different things was that interesting, to be honest. I don't know why we focus on Ginhan's group and then we focus on another group too. Like, I felt like it would be more interesting to focus on the other group since we know
that Ginhan's group was going to make it.
Yeah, since he's the main character. Why would they kill him in episode 4?
Yeah, exactly.
Overall,
overall, it did not hit the mark, but I don't think either of us necessarily expected it to.
Yeah.
So, I think that it was good enough. I would still recommend it if you liked the first season. I think you'll find this second season interesting. But yeah, that's just sort of where we're at in terms of like, yeah, it could have been better, could have been worse. But you know, I think the whole concept of continuing the franchise overall is like a risky endeavor because it's like, well, to what end?
Maybe he can pull it off with season 3, but we shall see. Hopefully this year.
Is it this year or next year?
I think it's this year.
Okay.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, I hope it is this year because I don't want to wait another 2 years for that.
No. Yeah.
Well, that was Squid Game season 2. Thank you so much for watching or for listening, and watching, I guess, if you're seeing this on YouTube. We are going to hopefully have some more episodes of the podcast coming out a little bit more regularly this year, trying to aim for at least one a month. So make sure you stay tuned on our Patreon and on all of our socials and such. I am also starting an independent YouTube channel, which you can check out, particularly if TikTok does indeed get that sweet yeet this coming week. So yeah, like depending on when you hear this, depending on when the recording's over, TikTok may well be truly gone, but I am not, and neither is John, and we are here, and you can still follow us on all of our platforms. So thank you so much for listening, and
catch you guys later.